Nestled between Tralee Bay to the east and Brandon Bay to the west, Maharees is what can only be described as a little slice of paradise. From its golden beaches to its rolling swells, the 7 hogs standing like soldiers on guard, fishermen casting nets and setting their pots, and farmers sowing seeds and growing their crops. From the sound of the oars easing into the waves, the gallop of horses to the Natterjack's chorus. Yet with every gain we receive from the sea, it can too often take sometimes lives young and free.
Just 2 miles off the coast behind me, something went catastrophically wrong on board the Père Charles.
You see, beauty can often come with a price, but community spirit can win fight after fight. And again, we will win, time after time, as our dunes erode, will protect our home, our place, our abode.
What I love the most about Maharees is its beauty. I love the shape of it. What I would be concerned about is mainly coastal erosion.
Coastal erosion.
Coastal erosion.
Coastal erosion.
I walk around the Point of Kilshannig a lot. It's one of my favourite spots in the whole world, and I can even see how narrow the walkway is getting. Every year it's getting narrower and narrower, and I dread the day that I may not be able to walk around that particular part of the beautiful Maharees. I feel very lucky to live here, and I just hope that it will be here for generations to come.
Anyone in Maharees you speak to will always remember the morning of the 1st of February 2014, when all the elements came against us and caused devastation. There is still evidence of this one storm. What would happen if something like this was to happen again?
My name is Martha Farrell. I'm chair of Maharees Conservation Association CLG. Maharees Conservation Association was founded in 2016 following the winter of 2015-16, when the only road in and out of the residential area of Maharees became covered in 3 to 4 foot drifts of sand on 17 different occasions. It was probably the worst winter in living memory, and nobody had solutions at the time as to how the sand deposition issue could be solved. A public meeting was called, and coincidentally, Dr. Eugene Farrell was presenting some of the findings he had on his dune monitoring project, which would have been funded by the OPW.
I'm Dr. Eugene Farrell. I'm a geographer and coastal scientist based in NUI Galway. What makes the Maharees unique? Well, the Maharees is a tombolo feature on our landscape, and that simply describes situations where sand or gravels have been deposited in such a way where islands offshore become connected to the mainland. Because it's very unique, it means it also needs to be protected and conserved, and that brings a whole host of management and planning challenges.
He urged us to form a community group and start engaging with the state agencies and the various stakeholders to try to find solutions for the issues and the root causes.
I'm Martin Lynch, one of the founding members of the Maharees Conservation Association.
There was a sense of urgency that with climate change and the increasing numbers, that there was great pressure on the coastline, and if the local population didn't effectively rally and try to manage the situation and get some support from the county council and other bodies, that the time may be too late if they were to miss this opportunity. So from that February public meeting, a committee was formed, and Maharees Conservation Association Limited was created. We have 15 members or so joining from different sectors of the area.
Members of the community have shown strong support for our actions, whether it's turning up to beach cleans, marron planting, fencing events, fundraising events, wildlife walks. The wider Maharees and Castle Gregory community have really been involved.
Another reason why the Maharees is unique in my view is the people who live there. I mean, over generations, coastal communities in Ireland have shown themselves to be resilient and shown themselves to be very rich in heritage and a history steeped in their connection to the coast and to the water, and the Maharees is no exception to this.
Obviously, we have coastal erosion and flooding problems in Maharees, and this erosion and flooding and inundation will be worsened by climate change and the associated sea level rise that will be part of that. And these are going to become more significant issues into the future.
We have to look at the ocean pressures that the Maharees suffer from, and these ocean pressures are related to sea levels and also, because of the location, to storms from the Atlantic. Climate change is already happening in the Maharees. We already see cases where that road is inaccessible many times, and there has been some solutions brought forward, but we still have the hazard of flooding at Trent Bridge or Kilshannig, and so it's important now that we support the communities to help them adapt to current hazards, but also the risks will increase over time. We cannot take away the risk because we cannot control the oceans, and all the climate projections for Ireland are locked in now at this stage thanks to all the human industrial activity the past 150 to 100 years. So the next step is, how do we adapt to the new climates, and how do we make these coastal communities, not just the Maharees but all over Ireland and worldwide, how do we make coastal communities more resilient? And that's part of my job as a coastal scientist, where we build the models showing here's how the coastline is behaving right now, and then simulating future casting in terms of here's how the shoreline might look like in 2050 or 2100. What we have seen over time is a transition in the Maharees, where the local economy that was once farming and fishing dominated has now transitioned slowly into an economy that's probably more defined by tourism and recreation activities. The Maharees has a very low density of population. I think it's under 300 people, but during the summer months, because it's so unique and so spectacular, we get a real large influx of seasonal tourists to Maharees, and this brings with it its own pressures.
Trying to achieve a balance between tourism and nature it can be tricky, but we have shown in a relatively small and confined area that it is possible to manage tourism and human impacts on a special area of conservation. And, all we really need to do is to provide temporary infrastructure and services to meet what is a fairly predictable surge. We need to plan beach access points, and we need to educate our visitors and our residents about the behaviours that allow nature to thrive. But I think we need now to see this becoming systematic around Ireland's coastline, because we will use our beaches and our coast to a greater degree. Climate change will bring nicer, warmer, sunnier summers. We will see a rise in Ireland's population. It's projected to rise by 1.2 million people by 2050. We will see better road connectivity to rural coastal areas like ours. And we probably will see a rise in flight taxes, I'd imagine, with climate change to control carbon emissions. So this really does point to the need to prepare now our coastal areas for probably a longer surge every year. We'll probably see visitors for a longer spell in the summertime. And, it's a fantastic place to be, on an Irish beach when the weather's good. There's nowhere like it. But at the same time, we need to really manage the visitors.
As we stand, the only official car parking space all along Brandon Bay is at Fermoil, which maybe accommodates 5 to 10 cars or so. So for one of the longest beaches on the Wild Atlantic Way to have no public car park is a bit of an omission by the authorities. So getting parking to disperse the population throughout the area, and rather than have them concentrating on one specific point would be the aim of this year.
We also have human intervention or human behaviour on our beach and dune system all over Ireland. So firstly, you have a lack of awareness among the general population of the importance of, but also the fragility of sand dunes as a coastal defence and as a wildlife habitat. The cumulative damage from climbing up a dune, camping on a dune, lighting fires on a dune can make that dune much more vulnerable to the effects of coastal processes, particularly in the winter time.
Getting people to realise that the coastal sand dunes are the only defence, effectively, that the people of Maharees have from an advancing sea. So by maintaining the sand, getting people to stay off the sand dunes, planting marram grass, and even educating people about the biodiversity on the sand dunes as to what, if they trample on them, what they are destroying and how unique they are, that'll play a part.
That is a very powerful method of securing people's cooperation, because once they realise how special the flora and fauna is in the Maharees, they are much more likely to become proud of it, and then they want to protect it.
As the sand covers the marram shoots up again.
We've worked hard to develop relationships with local schools, over the last few years, because I think it's really important to have, firstly, diversity in an effort. So we want all sections of the community involved somehow. I suppose, the curriculum probably won't cover in its entirety, what we have in Maharees. So there is a need to educate our community who live in this beautiful place just about what we have here.
I'm Tina Fitzgerald. I'm a transition year student in Manscoil Nua in Litchfield. Today we're in Maharees to learn more about its unique biodiversity and ecosystems.
Today anyway, the plan is marram grass planting first.
Today we're planting marram grass as the Maharees conservation. I'm delighted to be doing it because I suppose that's why I love Maharees so much. It's because the community that we have, everyone cares so much about the Maharees.
This area here was planted by TY students from Manscoil Nua in Litchfield 3 years ago here. Just to let you know that you're continuing the legacy in protecting Maharees, so thanks very much.
Young people growing up in this area, they should know about the flora and fauna of the area, and I think when we do bring them on wildlife walks and marram planting events, I think on some level they do appreciate it and they do recognise the value and importance of the effort to protect it. Going forward, they will see the full effects of climate change. So what we found is our voluntary work and our activities have really served to make us more resilient. So, we would hope that if we can get buy-in from the younger generations, it will help to make them more resilient to climate change, because it is going to have a big effect on the West Coast in particular. So we have had a lot of success stories in our 5 years since we started. Recently, we've been told we're the most advanced community in the country in relation to deploying nature-based solutions.
We've made some major headway in the last couple of months in terms of changing the way coasts are managed in Ireland, and the Maharees is leading all the other coastlines and all the other communities. It blows my mind, and I'm just happy to be part of it and to help facilitate, support them. I was helping really at the start to initiate and give them ideas, but man, I'm at the back of the bus now. I'm holding on for dear life.
And recently we co-founded a Coastal Community Alliance. So this is a group of 20 coastal communities around Ireland who are coming together to share ideas, solutions, and to raise awareness of the issues we face with relevant stakeholders. So we have seen significant dune recovery in that time. We've got photographic evidence of that. So that's very satisfying for anyone who's been involved. We always say the people who choose not to walk on a dune or camp on a dune are all part of that, because without their buy-in, then the results wouldn't be so clear-cut, I suppose. And we have also controlled the sand deposition. That was the reason for the whole formation of Maharees Conservation Association. So with the cooperation of Kerry County Council and the National Parks and Wildlife Service, erected 3 lines of sand trap fencing on this part of the dune where the road was becoming covered. And the road's been clear since we implemented that nature-based solution.
I think it's so important to make sure it's maintained so that when future generations come and when I grow up and have my children here, that they'll love it just as much as we do.